don't be afraid of failing and don't be afraid of taking risks.
Natasha, thank you for joining me here today on the Go at Manav. For those that do not know you, could you please tell them a bit more about yourself?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Natasha Syed and I am the founder of British Muslim and Travel magazine. I also work with JCDecaux, where I'm trying to help promote different types of clients within the industry, and I have been doing so for the past many, many years.
Awesome. Well, I'm very excited to learn more about you, Natasha, as we go through this podcast episode. But first, I like to go back in time with a lot of my guests as usual. And please tell us, what were you doing at age 18?
Wow, now that's a tough question. I think at 18, it was probably year 2003, and I was pretty much in my final year at secondary school. I was probably preparing for university and trying to kind of pitch down which university I was going to. Alongside my studies, I was pretty much working part time at a electrical store. Actually, gosh, you've taken me back now, Manav.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a great opportunity to do a little bit of part-time work while I was studying, just to get my feet under the ground. I worked for a an electrical store and also a kitchen store where I began my first role actually in sales, which I'm still obviously very much in as well. But yeah, looking back at life, it just felt a lot more simpler. But it was a great job and I gained a lot of experience from it.
Wow. 2003. And so this was your first job, I guess, say, before university.
Yeah, absolutely. It was an opportunity for me to get into a role before university, and before trying to figure out what career I was going to have moving forward. It was a small stint, so it wasn't full time. It was very much part time. So it was kind of after school on a Thursday, and then on the weekends only, like the Saturday, Sunday.
Okay. And what was university like for you?
So university was amazing. I think it gave me an opportunity to really kind of find myself and find more about, what kind of things I like, the type of people I want to be around, the education and career that I wanted to go into. And it really kind of helped me really understand life a little bit better. Being away from parents and friends and like your current support system that you would have when you're at school. I think you get to learn so much moving forward. And it was just an opportunity to kind of understand where my skills lied, where I can kind of gain knowledge. But it was a fun time. It gave me an opportunity to meet lots of people from such diverse backgrounds, which was really nice. In fact, I come from a very small city where it wasn't very diverse. So meeting people from different backgrounds and different religions and ethnicities was just incredible. It was just such a good experience to have that opportunity to connect and kind of reconnect with people.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people would say that is that university really does bring people together. You are exposed to so many different people from different nationalities and backgrounds. When it came to you leaving university and, going into the real world of work, how was that transition like for you?
It's quite fortunate. I think at university, I had the opportunity to do a small stint at MTV and Viacom. And that really set the tone for me as to what kind of career and what my direction needed to be and where I wanted to go. It was a part time placement as far as part of my kind of final year. But it definitely gave me a lot of knowledge around, how to kind of behave in certain professional environments. It also gave me, a window to explore, production and editing, and TV, which was great, but also build on my social skills, which was really important. I think at university, although I was quite a shy person when I was younger, it was allowing me to grow as a person. And I think that's what I quite enjoyed of having the confidence and really kind of pushing barriers and pushing my own kind of sentiments and my own barriers in my mind to help me kind of move forward. So I was quite fortunate to have that small stint. And then I moved back home. I then very quickly managed to land a job with EMAP, and who then transitioned into Bauer Media. And it was a great opportunity because it allowed me to really understand the sales side of magazines and how magazines and publishing works. So I was working across many different titles like Your Horse magazine, Angling Times, Improve Your Course Fishing, Model Rail. So there was just magazines that weren't really much of my interest, but it was just interesting to learn how they all work and how they operate, not only from like a sales side, but also from a publishing side, a marketing side, and a PR side. So that kept me really busy for like three years after I had left university. But I was really ambitious. I always wanted more. I always wanted to kind of move up the ladder and learn as much as I could from advertising, sales, PR, marketing while I was there. And it was a great company to work for because Bauer Media, over the years, they've just grown bigger and bigger. They've gone into, lots of different other media, whether it's out of home, whether it's print, digital. So I really got a good footing and understanding of print and digital media from Bauer at the time when I had left uni.
Absolutely, I can imagine. And was this your first introduction to the publishing industry, or when you're in university, you did some work within like a publishing society as part of your degree?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose working with MTV and Viacom definitely allowed me to understand publishing within the TV realm and production and how that all works. But it was a very short period. So Bauer definitely allowed me to really kind of not only gain the skills and knowledge, but the training that they gave at the time was really extensive. It was very focused, it was very driven. So I really had the opportunity to really, yeah, push myself and kind of, understand that market more as a 360 when I had left uni.
I see. And after your first job at Bauer Media, what were the rest of your 20s like in terms of the other opportunities you immersed yourself into?
Yeah, no, really good question. I think my 20s seem like a blur. They seem so far away. But yeah, I think, work wise, I would always, dip in and out of different jobs because I was always that person that wanted to learn. I like learning. I don't think you can ever stop learning,
I agree.
after being in a job for so long and you kind of understand it and it becomes like ABC, you're then looking to kind of focus around other opportunities. And at that time, I was very keen to learn more about publishing, not only through printed digital, but through TV and events and PR and marketing. And that's where my kind of journey started within my 20s. So even though I had a full time job, I would always be doing these contracts on the side, passion projects on the side, where I was very much learning things that I couldn't maybe learn at Bauer at the time. So I was always kind of curious. I was definitely a curious person looking for new opportunities, looking for new ways to, I suppose, learn and develop and build on my own skills at that time.
Would you say back at that time you were wondering, is it going to all pay off by you immersing yourself and, getting involved in a lot of different opportunities outside of your full-time job? Are you happy you did all of it?
Yeah, 100%. I think, some of it was always fast paced, some of it was exciting, but it was incredibly rewarding at the time. And I think, if I was to do it again, I wouldn't really do anything different because I just learned so much from all the people that I met. I was learning from all the people that I was connecting with and networking with. And I was taking what I wanted from each person. And I think that's a great way to learn when you don't really have a mentor or a coach at that time. I mean, back in those days, mentors and coaches weren't very prominent. And, being Muslim, being Asian, being a woman, it was a little bit harder. So I had to kind of like pave my own path and figure it out myself, but be around the right support system, the right people, and have the chance to kind of also share that knowledge because it's all about sharing. There's no point keeping that knowledge to yourself if it can be of use to somebody else. So yeah, I think at that time it was an incredible chapter in my life, and I was just so privileged to work with so many different people from all walks of life across all the different projects and passion projects that I was working across.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting fact you said about you wanting to share your knowledge because I feel like we live in a world where, people kind of want to compete for themselves or, they wouldn't want to, I guess, open up. But now we're living in a digital world where, there is, like you said, now we have mentorship. Now we have people who are willing to see others succeed, but some aren't. So how do you deal with that level of competition?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think some people are in a race, and I think those people tend to fail quite quickly because they want to work solo, they want to work fast, and then you see those businesses or those people grow, but then very quickly fall. And I think for me, it was very much there's no rush, there's no race. It's all about learning and developing and enjoying it. And I think because I enjoyed it, I loved working with the people I was working and the projects that I'm working on. I had the freedom to kind of change the narrative with the magazine, but also change the narrative in any work that I was doing moving forward. So I think, it was a time when you have that passion and you just see it grow with kind of amongst the right people. Definitely a kind of learning phase of my life, my 20s and my 30s. And it still is.
Yeah, it never stops.
No.
So, Natasha, please tell us a bit more about your journey into entrepreneurship now, and in particular, British Muslim Magazine.
Yeah, so British Muslim Magazine I launched in 2013, and it's the UK's leading publication for Muslim lifestyle and culture and travel. It's aimed at kind of, high net worth audiences who identify with being British and Muslim, and it very much covers, the halal travel industry, heritage, fashion, history, culture, as well as food and drink. It's a publication that's been around for a little while, but it's got a really strong presence through print and digital now. And it's not only found in the UK, but it's also found overseas. And it's just been a great journey. It really did start as a passion project, and it developed into a full-fledged publication where it's so nice to see the amount of followers that we have on social media, the feedback that we get from our community, and it's been tough. It's been tough to kind of keep it running with the right partners, with the right message. But it's been great to be able to change that narrative in publishing slightly, and really focus on the community, which is why I developed it. It's for all my community so that they can really hone in on positive news and inspiration and advice that they can kind of take away and have a bit of a belonging towards.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's wonderful. When you mentioned you initially started British Muslim Magazine as a passion project, how did you decide to take it full time?
Yeah, I think coming from publishing, I mean, after Bauer, I had obviously gone into other publishing houses. So I was working with Chelsea Magazines and kind of several other publishers. And I had the opportunity to really put back all the knowledge and information and skills that I had learnt from Bauer into these other publishers. And a lot of them were private, a lot of them were smaller. But I think what was beautiful is because the industry is something that I understand quite well, it was quite easy for me to develop it and, develop it at a cost where I was always high in revenue when it comes to keeping it going. But over the years, with the fact that we are very much in this digital world, trying to kind of build that network has been difficult. But I think it's just being able to have that support from the right people and the right partners that can also see the benefit of it. They actually genuinely like what we're doing, and all the feedback from all the readers and the members is something that definitely keeps us going. We just want to see it grow and have that presence within the community and the industry moving forward. But I think the other part of the magazine is it definitely allows more ethnic backed journalists especially have the opportunity to write, and to allow them to come into journalism, to come into the travel industry, to come into the lifestyle industry is just a wonderful feeling. So it's nice to be able to kind of, I suppose, like not only recommend, but also advise and mentor and coach new journalists and people to kind of work with us and have the confidence to actually have a career in journalism more.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good, Natasha. And it's nice that, you are, like you said, with your community, you are bringing people together. You're allowing people to contribute for your publication for the sake of trying to build, a bigger audience and that more people can relate to. When did your interest in journalism begin?
For me, journalism, the interest definitely kind of was probably like 10, 15 years ago. I was just very curious in changing the narrative. We had seen and heard so many negative stories online and through kind of newspapers and so on, which just didn't reflect with my community. It didn't reflect with me. It didn't sit right with me. And I went into journalism to really kind of change that narrative. And I started working with other slightly larger publishing houses and wrote for them. But, with those kind of opportunities, a lot of your work can be changed to suit their narrative and so on. So I got a bit fed up of it. So it was just about trying to create something fresh where I had the freedom to change the narrative, lead a kind of a sector and lead kind of people to understand that this is something different. It's very focused, it's very for them, and it allows to kind of help them on their journey, whether it's advice or whether it's recommendations. For me, it was just about sharing the knowledge. And I think journalism just gave me that freedom to be able to do that really quickly. I love playing with words. I love creating kind of, content that really relates to our readers from the get go and, very much promoting not only their faith and their religion, but also just genuinely them being able to explore places in a meaningful way without having to vet articles to find out if there's halal options when they go to holidays, or whether there are halal opportunities through travel experiences. So I think it was very much trying to help that audience relate to certain topics and information really quickly, which then led me on to kind of furthering my career in journalism more, and very much kind of still writing for British Muslim magazine.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It's great to hear that, you are so ambitious and determined because I can really see that in you when it comes to this business and, very commercial driven. So it's great to see that. And, I totally agree with you when it comes to surrounding yourself with the right people. I think that is crucial and key to long-term success at the end of the day. So, Natasha, could you please tell us a particular career highlight for you?
Gosh, I've got so many.
Yeah.
There's so many interesting highlights. I think one of the highlights for me was probably in my PR days. It was when I had the opportunity to PR a concert for a really well known and established singer called Rahat Fateh Ali Khan. And it was just by chance that I managed to pick up a PR contract for him. It was just an amazing opportunity. I mean, at the time, I was about 19 years old and kind of creating a whole PR strategy plan for a well established artist, but also someone that was kind of, performing at the likes of the O2 and NEC Birmingham. I think that was definitely one of my proudest moments. There was a lot of work that went into it, and there was a lot of things that I was literally learning on the job. I didn't know it all, but I think it was just the confidence of me just saying yes and taking on the opportunity and really throwing myself in there allowed me to really kind of build on that self resilience and that confidence, but also it allowed me to really understand that I can work in high pressure environments. And I think from a very young age, I think I'm quite blessed in the sense that I was always working with a lot of high pressure organizations and projects that just gave me that skill that I think everybody should have when they're young, because you can really
Absolutely.
learn a lot. You can 100% learn a lot from being in those environments. So I think that was definitely one of my highlights, to do something incredible like that at such a young age and then kind of follow it through and see how things work from a production, concert, events side, as well as like press conferences and creating them and making sure all the press releases are being sent out. It's such an exciting time to be kind of supported, but also to be given that chance that someone took on me, which I think was really, really kind of challenging and risky, but they did it, and it kind of paid off. So it was great.
Yeah, no, I'm actually really happy to hear that, you picked a career highlight earlier in your career because I would have obviously expected something to do with British Muslim magazine, but you picked up something, that kind of reminds you of your story. And this is also why I do my podcast, is to get people to, reflect and think, oh, this is where I was. And, it still stands out to you 20 years later and stuff. So it's absolutely incredible. And it's so, you're very knowledgeable by the things you're talking about, Natasha. And it does make me wonder, there has to be a piece of advice that you probably knew sooner or you wish you knew earlier in your career. What would that be for those listening?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'd definitely say, like, life isn't a race. I think it's okay to stop and pause or have a break and then come back to a career. People have their whole life figured out from a young age. And I think, I was definitely not that person. And it's okay not to figure it out so early, because you just don't know what path will take you where and what environment will take you where and what people will even take you where. So there's so many elements that can affect where you will be in 10 years. But you do have the choice to kind of create that path for yourself as well. But then there's a lot of influence as well. So I think my advice would definitely be like, stay curious, build on your skills. Some of the biggest setbacks I've had will, have definitely become some of my greatest teachers and achievements. So it's definitely not a race. Take care of your health for sure. And it's just a really important time to give yourself the time to kind of reflect. You are on the high and also when you're on the low. So yeah, I think health 100% is just something that people kind of oversee. You should always look after your health regardless of what you're doing through that journey.
Yeah, I think that's something I'm still working on, especially as someone who's in their mid 20s. I feel like, people are saying that you have a lot more energy and time when you're younger. So I think that's why I kind of crave that desire to do more and better, now than later. That's kind of ingrained into my mind as opposed to, actually taking time off because we always put a lot of pressure on ourselves also because we're comparing ourselves to people sometimes. I've kind of not been doing that as I used to, but it's also, you have to remind yourself that, you yourself just come first at the end of the day. And this is actually my next question to you, Natasha, because talking about, self-prioritizing, how do you manage your time as an entrepreneur?
It's got better, I'm not gonna lie.
Okay,
I think in the midst of things when things are really busy, you have tiny teams that you're working with or freelancers that you're working with, and you feel like you have to do it all yourself. And I've been in that kind of mode for many 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 years, where you can't find the right people to work with, or people come and go, or people just don't kind of understand your passion or what you're trying to do. So I think, it's always been a bit difficult to, I suppose, delegate and give opportunities to people to help with the situation when it comes to British Muslim Magazine, because I think it was a publication that had never really been done before the way it's done now. And it needed a lot of focus, dedication, understanding of the Muslim market, but also of publishing and advertising from a commercial point of view as well. So
I see.
I think trying to kind of juggle that alongside kind of the other work that I do with JCDecaux or any other kind of events that I put on as part of different networks, it can be quite stressful and quite high pressures. But I think you get used to it. But if you
Yeah,
can
you're
find the
used to
right,
it.
yeah, if you can find the right people, put them in the right places. What someone else can do, I can't do, and what I can do, someone else can't do. And you have to have that open mind in business because there are tons of people that can probably do what I'm doing much better. And that's fine. But I think, it's just trying to make sure that you find the right people that you're working with and be confident enough to accept that. I've failed so many times, but you just kind of pick yourself up and you carry on. But, very much focusing around time blocking. I'm so much better at that now than I was before. Actually locking in time for certain things and making sure that what I'm working on is actually done. Time management for me has always been a bit of an issue since I've been young. So I think I've worked really hard to make sure that I'm better in that. But other than that, I think it's just making sure that you do switch off at the normal time of 9 to 5, or you are working 3 days a week in 100%, and then you have those other days where you can have time to really reflect and do other things. Trying to keep balance, I think, is really key. And it's very hard to do, very easy to say, very hard to do. But if
Yeah.
you can find that balance, then you're winning because you definitely need good sleep, good food in you, good positive people around you to keep going. And I think if you can kind of fizzle out the rubbish and just stick to that pattern and that schedule, I think you're winning. So for me, yeah, I think it's very much making sure that there's a structure so that I can keep following it. But every day is different. So I say that, but yeah, like I said, every day can be very different.
No one has seen tomorrow. That's the thing as well.
Yes, yes,
But
exactly that.
no, completely. I think what you just mentioned right now, I just needed to hear that. I think a lot of us do because we always, again, it's all about that balance, but we always get carried away. We're always sometimes before we go to sleep, we're doom scrolling. We're easily distracted. So it's trying to stay
100%.
focused and stay your lane. And I guess that kind of leads me to my second last question. And that is, what are you up to nowadays, Natasha?
Yeah, really good question. So I'm still working on developing British Muslim Magazine, and trying to kind of move into the digital side of the digital presence more. Like I said before, I think we're very much in a digital age where people from different parts of the UK and overseas just consume content and information in a very different way. So trying to kind of push the digital side for us is really key this year. So that's our kind of projection for this year for the magazine. So to, very much develop on people. So we're always looking for new journalists and new people that want to very much bring ideas into the publication. So we're always looking for not only those people, but investors and journalists that can kind of help us build what we're trying to build. And like I said before, for us it's not a race. It's trying to kind of, develop something of quality for the community with the right people. And I'm very much focused on doing that. I also obviously work with different organizations as well. So I'm very much still doing lots of thought led pieces in different countries where I very much kind of hone in on travel and the travel market and how that industry is changing, how it's moving more into kind of AI and that whole kind of bubble around, what does AI for travel look like in the future? So yeah, it's definitely keeping me busy with the audience industry, but also giving my knowledge and my skills back to the industry as well. So yeah, for the next probably 6 months, I'll be very much focused on developing the magazine more and very much doing lots of seminars, thought led pieces, and white papers to share that knowledge of where I'm going and where I'm presenting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's really good, Natasha. And I love the words that were saying over again about having that shared knowledge, bringing people together, that sense of community, having the right people together. That definitely caters to long-term success. I just wanted to ask you a bonus question. Now you mentioned AI. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on AI in the travel industry, I guess?
Yeah, I think, we've got a long way to go. I think no one can see further than like 4 years, if I'm honest. So, anybody that can, I'd love to find out what you think. I've not seen anything that's come up on like a news feed or anything to say that anybody even knows what that will look like. But I
Yeah,
think, I think something to remember with AI is there'll always be somebody behind that AI pressing a button. So, whether it's being afraid of losing jobs or whether it's closing down companies, I just don't think we're there. I think we're very much around still developing and researching and understanding I think it's fantastic in some ways, but then yes, I can understand there's a this scare of it kind of kicking in and changing the whole landscape or some of the industries that we all work across. But I think provided that it's managed and it's moving slow, I think we can all keep up with it, and really kind of understand where it can be of benefit and where it can't be of benefit. But there's just so much around AI that's kind of moving in the right direction within
yeah.
industries that's very interesting to kind of deep dive into. But maybe that could be another podcast.
Yeah. It's like we probably, again, AI is so generalized now in the fact that we don't know what's right, what to believe and what do we not believe in because everyone has something to prove with AI, but only time will tell. Exactly. That's the thing because we're only going to get more involved into using it and used to it and having it as part of our daily lives, which has already been the case.
Completely that. I think it's just giving it another couple years. What we see of AI and the way it works now is probably just a basic version. In 5 years, it will be completely different. So I think it's just a process and for us to kind of follow that process and then, figure out, does this work for my business? Does it not? Is it something that I can rely on constantly? Or is it something that you just want to not use at all? I know in publishing, obviously there was a huge scare around AI being able to generate and develop like features and images and so on. But people are still using it just to graze their work and still try to keep it authentic when they're writing and in their own kind of tone of voice as a human. But I think they still lean on AI to tidy it up. So
Yeah, just chopping it up.
yeah, I just think, would it ever take over journalism or writing? No, because I think everybody has their own tone, everybody has their own voice, everybody writes in a different way. When I write, it's very much focused around having the Muslim consumer or audience in mind. So it's very much using their language and so on. I think there is a scare around AI, but I just don't think we should worry about it. I think life's too short to worry about things like that.
100%. And speaking of not worrying about anything, Natasha, this is the last question. What would you say to your 18-year-old self,
Oh my goodness, my
taking you way back?
eighteen-year-old self, yeah, way back. I think what I would say to my 18-year-old self would be don't be afraid of failing and don't be afraid of taking risks. And, no doesn't really mean no. It just means not right now, maybe a bit later, wrong timing, wrong place, wrong person. So I think it's just very much, keep moving, keep curious, and very much, build on those skills. At 18, 19, you're very much try and, enjoying life with less pressures, not really understanding what you're going to do moving forward and whatnot. But I think if you can start just building on your skills, doesn't matter what skills it is, just build it because you never know when you might need it.
Yeah. No, that's a great piece of advice, Natasha. I think definitely one of the things you were able to apply. And a lot of people should definitely nowadays what teenagers should definitely consider all of that as well. So very crucial.
Fab.
Well, thank you, Natasha, for joining me here today. For people who like to get in touch or just to learn more about you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, you could definitely kind of reach out to me via email. So my email is just Natasha at britishmuslim-magazine.com. Or kind of drop me a LinkedIn kind of friends request. I'm always on LinkedIn, always checking my LinkedIn on a daily basis, and it'd be great to connect.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely leave those details in the information section for the episode. And for those listening, make sure to like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Thank you, Natasha, for joining me here today, and I will see you soon.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Manav. I've really enjoyed it.